Are we live? We're live. Hey,
Yes,
everybody.
sir.
Welcome to the Shadow Crew podcast, episode 22. Here streaming on multiple different. Oh, I can hear my feedback. Technical difficulties already. We got to fire the producers. Fire the producers.
Yeah, well, you know how it is sometimes and everything. When you're doing a technical show and it's live, everything is going to go problematic when it goes live.
Well,
but when we
Yeah,
were testing it, nothing went wrong.
you got to fire the. This a multi-million-dollar production sometimes
Hmm.
doesn't go right.
I know.
and it isn't going right on one of our things. So you guys go ahead. I got a little work to do over here. But you'll be able to see me having frustrations.
Oh, okay. Well, that's as long as it goes. It's usually.
Yeah, well, thanks for tuning in, listening. Again, the Shadow Crew podcast. First off, we want to say, please like and subscribe, follow the channel. We got multiple social pages out there. Helps us grow. Hopefully, you all first time listeners, or if you've been following us along, episode 22, and we're excited to jump into some really interesting topics this week. Just a brief breakdown of what we'll be covering here live. First major announcement: Star Wars film Mando and Grogu finally get a full length feature film. So that's really excited. So we'll talk a bit about that. Big announcement in Hollywood: Tom Cruise and the Warner Brothers deal. What does that mean as far as Tom Cruise future, different films? Will we see some interesting sequels? We'll talk a little bit about Twitch. Obviously, we're live streaming now, not on Twitch. But what's happening with Twitch? And the big announcement. Unfortunately, a bunch of layoffs and just our thoughts around that. We'll touch briefly on Echo, the new Marvel series from Marvel Studios that was on Netflix. Actually, pretty decent Rotten Tomato scores comparative to the other MCU related TV series. We'll talk a bit about that. And then our best of series. So every week we do a best of, and this week is the best of series, the best adapted character from print to screen. So who did it the best? Comic books or just overall books, novels, who translated the best to the big or small screen. So without further ado, let's get into things. First off, Mando gets his own film. Favreau directed. Is this going to be a big box office numbers here? People still excited about Mando? What do you all think?
Well, I can tell you this. I can. I was surprised when I saw this because I didn't think they were going to. Normally, they do this when like a show's like over. I think the only time I remember like an in movie kind of scenario was when they did it with like the X Files or something. I remember they did that in between. If I'm not mistaken, season 4 and 5, maybe or
I think 5 and 6,
five
or
or six.
yeah, around there though.
But they did it where they
But
tied
at the
into.
height of the
Yeah,
popularity
at the end of one season, then he did the movie, and then the movie, the next
during the
season took
summer.
right over it. So that was the kind of like I think at the time that was actually a smart promotional play. Got more mainstream people that probably wasn't watching it to get into it. I think when you move, first of all, let's be honest, the Star Wars films haven't done well. They've done well monetarily wise, but not in the eyes of fans and like the whole genre people that look forward to them. So now you've got the opportunity to excite people about a movie that people actually probably want to see. And the only downside that I've heard is that if they're doing this movie, chances are they're going to chop the season only down to 6 episodes. So we're going to lose something to get something. So the movie, John Favreau's involved. I always think it's going to be good. I think he gives us all. I'm not gonna think that it's going to be a disappointing display. I think he's going to do a really good job with this. So I can't wait to see what he's doing with it.
And what you can do is not necessarily tie it in with all of the very, the canon stuff that's all about, Mandalore and getting all that stuff back. They can actually do a fun adventure with the kind of budget that a movie affords,
Yep.
if that's what he wants to do. But that's the kind of thing I see Jon Favreau doing, is more of like, anybody can walk into this. This is going to be a Star Wars movie on a scale that you haven't seen on the TV stuff we've done, and it's got Din Djarin and Grogu, who everyone loves now, because people that haven't even watched the show have Baby Yodas.
Sure. Yeah,
I,
I think it's incredibly smart that they're doing this at this time, at this juncture.
yeah, and I think what you could do is you can do, even if it's 6 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you really want to drive the hell out of box office, because people are going to go watch it anyway,
Mm-hmm.
is there's got to be at the end of the 6th episode a teaser that segues into the film. What could be? I mean, the Luke Skywalker thing was probably one of the biggest reveals ever. Like, I don't think anybody anticipated that. There were like rumors if Luke was gonna, and then boom, it happened. And what could they possibly do to tease something like that, right? Plus, you have Moff Gideon, who's like a cool bad guy that you can continue that, because we know he's escaped in some capacity. We don't know where so you already have a really cool bad. You could further expand upon like his involvement in the storyline. But like, what would be as cool as Luke Skywalker to like tease? Is there
You
anybody?
get Luke, Han, and Leia back together in their prime,
Mm-hmm.
and that is doable, because I know that Harrison Ford did do some stuff that we haven't seen yet, that was like
Mm,
on a motion capture stage. So who
Mm-hmm.
knows what they have in store for us? But if it's straight up, yeah, go ahead, use my likeness. I don't give a shit. It's on Solo.
Yeah,
that'd be
I
epic.
I do think they've got the opportunity to do that. I do know probably we will see Luke Skywalker. They've done it with the regular Mando seasons, and now you can
Mhm.
bring him in because at one point or another, Luke's going to have to come in and save Grogu, teach him something. I'm sure. So, and I think the
Mhm.
fans, this is the era that the fans really have wanted. I know Disney has pushed down, or Lucasfilms pushed down certain eras that fans really haven't really taken a liking to. This is the era that fans actually adore, and I think it was just a smart idea to bring this to the screen because it's a guaranteed box office for them, and at this point, that's what Disney wants: guaranteed box offices. They don't want to have to guess about the returns; they want to know the returns. I think this is
Mhm.
going to do extremely well, not only for the film wise in the box office. I think merchandising wise is going to do real good. I think it's going to help Disney Plus even more because you're going to draw people who what's all this hoopla about this Baby Yoda character, and they may go to a film
Mhm.
more than purchase Disney Plus.
Well,
So that
I
might
only
help at
have to
all.
sit for 2 hours instead of, oh, how many hours of this TV show do I got to watch for that
Exactly.
fucking? Forget it. No.
Very good
So.
marketing ploy by them.
I guess the thing would be, in typical Star Wars fashion, will we see Grogu influenced by the dark side? Will
Yeah.
there be a moment? I mean, there hasn't really been any teases. It's been more about, trying to abduct him, but we have
Mhm.
not. As he's getting older, will there be something like that? It would be like, again, recycling a story, but because they've set him up to be such a little kid, like we've seen his
Mhm.
growth, it'd be interesting, more
uh,
powerful than like Anakin if we
and
saw that.
also, he's not around when the sequels showed up, as far as we know,
Exactly. Exactly.
because they called Luke Skywalker the last Jedi.
Mhm. Mhm.
We didn't see what happened to Grogu, so maybe he's in
Yeah,
the other universe or something. But
yeah.
something could happen, and he is forming these attachments
Mhm.
to all these people, and he didn't want to go on the path of the Jedi, and that's even something they could do. Whereas it comes to that point where he's like, you know what, I did mess up. I should become a Jedi,
Mhm.
and goes
Oh,
down a
it's
tragic
like you
path.
were saying the path of a Jedi. Well, Suka now obviously it's after they've done the actual movies and they invented these characters to put them in the timeline. But technically, she's not considered to be a full Jedi anymore. She's more like a person that went on her own path. So I can understand the terminology because if you think about it, from Empire Strikes Back when Obi-Wan Kenobi kind of does that whole thing about the Darth Vader and hey, you kind of lied to me kind of scenario. He said, well, he kind of bent the truth a little bit. And in this case, I'm sure when they say that Luke's the last Jedi, they probably could bend the truth a little bit in the sense of, well, there's people that are force capable, but you're the only true person practicing the philosophy of Jedi, you know?
I just want to see a dark Grogu destroy a bunch of like Ewoks with lightsabers, just like dude, parts everywhere. It would be funny to see. Uh, in other Hollywood news, Tom Cruise, big Warner Brothers deal. Um, Tom Cruise is still the king of Hollywood. I mean, this guy's just got this reputation for making really strong films, and now um, we're going to see some really great films out of it. I think coming out of it, one of the things was, will we see an Edge of Tomorrow 2,
Mhm.
which was a surprise hit, in my opinion, and deserves a sequel. I think the other conversation is there's talks about Top Gun 3, but that would be Paramount. But I
Mhm.
don't know if does that still stay with Paramount? Do they
Yeah.
Yes.
own Top
Yeah, yeah.
Gun? So I guess he has something like it's not exclusivity. He must be able to still do that because I read
No,
today
but
in Variety he
his
can do
office
that, right?
moved. Like he used to have
Yes.
an office on the Paramount
Mhm.
lot, and now
So
they
but
gotta
he could
get
still
the
make
hell out.
films. It must not be exclusive. But
Yeah.
so, what are your thoughts? Tom Cruise, Warner Brothers. This is interesting. It's always
Well,
Paramount's been his bread and
yeah,
butter.
all the new stuff that the Tom Cruise
Yep.
production company comes up with will go through Warner Brothers first. But it'll probably be like if Warner Brothers doesn't want it, then he'll be like,
Mhm.
"Hey, Paramount, remember Top Gun? I got something better." But it's just how it goes. All these people always go back and forth, and over a certain amount of time your deal is up. Okay, find a new place. And every now and then they strike gold, and that's why they keep doing it.
Yeah, and I think that it's look, I've heard Tom Cruise was having a little bit of problems with Paramount, and this is why maybe he sought out another deal. Maybe Paramount, I know that there's probably an issue with the Mission Impossible because I know they want to examine that franchise a little bit more, and I think that's so heavily dependent upon with Tom Cruise that it's really kind of hurt it because at one time we've heard they were looking for an actual replacement for Tom Cruise, and it was supposed to be a passing of the torch, and that never happened. And now it seems like that's going to be the case. So him moving over to Warner Brothers, which people fail to realize, he's worked with Warner Brothers before. It's not like he hasn't. The Risky Business, a couple of his earlier films was over at Warner Brothers. I think this is just if you're in films and the way the industry is at this exact moment is looking like the whole Christopher Nolan and Warner Brothers when he moved from there. I think it's good to have a variety when you're at one place too long, to make them understand what type of person you are when you're doing work for other people. And I think in Tom Cruise's point, I think he's like, look, he's still the biggest action movie star right now on the face of the planet. Um, he still gets incredible box office numbers. He still has a lot of interest in just his personal life and tabloids and things like that. I think it's a smart move. I think it's not going to hurt his career. And look, we do get Edge of Tomorrow too. That's going to be kind of interesting because that was the one film that they had talked about for years. And I kind of wondered if they were ever like, how would they do it? Because it was such a dramatic shift as a film from one point to another point to, you know, how can you do that twice? And how can you do it good twice?
Well, see, that's the thing. Because it's time travel, you can come up with any kind of crazy
Hmm.
scenario. And, it's like, oh, yeah, everything's been great for 10 years. And now they've come back, using this time thing. So, uh, I don't know. But again, you have to get all of that right because the first one worked out so well. you can't have a lackluster sequel.
Yes.
Because again, if you do it right, you've got the next Maverick, and they'll make $1 billion.
Yeah, just as long as if they make a third one, it's not in a Western, because we know how that works with time travel.
Yeah.
So
Hey, you do not disparage Marty McFly and Dr. Emmett Brown.
Hey, this is the Shadow Crew podcast, episode 22. Thanks for listening and viewing. Like, subscribe. We're multi-streaming on various platforms, so follow us along if you're a new listener or a new subscriber. So thanks for tuning in. In other big news this week, as we talk about live streaming, Twitch, which is one of the biggest streaming platforms out there, owned by Amazon, laid off a significant amount of people again, 13 years without earning a profit. It's sad because if you think about the industry as a whole, streaming is still huge. And although it has slowed since, the pandemic has concluded, people are back to work, there's not as many people home looking for content. It's strange that this still has not turned a profit with all the different personalities and the millions and dollars invested with content and features and popular streamers. So what do you all say about this? What does that mean? And it's sad to hear a company like that laying off a bunch of people this time of year, but I guess it's an indication that Twitch may not be around for the next 10 years as I think people thought they would.
Did they have ads? How are they making money?
They have ads. I mean, you talking about ads like for Twitch to know?
No, just how are they making money?
I think it's ads. It's like when you watch Twitch.
I guess you just need to get bigger advertisers and more people watching. But
well, that's a double-edged sword too, because there's certain things that advertisers, obviously, like the same way on other platforms. There's certain material and certain things that they're not going to put their advertising dollars with. And there's as much as Twitch has a very positive gaming side, there's also a very negative side. That actually was certain creators in certain situations where advertisers are going to be like, don't put my material on that. So, it's, I know, with, we'll use Google instead of saying actual other platform, but they have strict guidelines and everything of what they're doing. And, certain creators are non-monetized, and basically, let's be honest, they've actually done a good job of pushing them to the back, and kind of like destroying the channels. If you're doing content that they don't deem as marketable or advertisable, if that's a word, actually, it's not. But I think that's one of the things that hits them when you have so many people that you can advertise on, and then a large majority that you can't. It's Twitch was always seen more as like, even though it was live stream, a tad bit rebellious, and and it also goes to the point, 13 years without making a profit. You had the wrong CEO and the wrong people. That was obviously because, let's be honest, 5 years into any business, you should start turning a profit at that point. If you're especially a company backed by one of the largest companies on the face of the planet, it's like, I don't know the numbers of Apple TV, but if they weren't earning a profit by now, there's a problem with their parent corporation, because it's like, this is it moves into, what are you doing as a company? What are you combating this with?
Well, I'm not sure any of these streaming companies are making a profit yet. Like I saw a thing, I don't know, maybe a year ago that said Paramount Plus wasn't projected to make a profit until 2027.
Well, I understand Paramount Plus; they don't have a lot of material, but Disney
Plus isn't even making a profit. So,
well, they're not making a profit, but they've moved to the Strive, which it's the same thing.
Close.
It's the same thing with Netflix. Netflix was having negative returns year in and year out, but then all of a sudden now they said, you know what, we're going to have to move to advertising, and yeah, you're going to have to move to advertising if you want to There's
Well,
only so many subscribers you can get
and
at one point or another.
take away the whole point of why people were going this route in the first place. It's like, oh, you're just inventing television again with ads in the middle.
Everything goes back to whatever it was. It's like, television
Mhm.
killed radio, streaming's killing television, but they're all little pieces of one another. They
And it's
all
like,
need
oh,
advertising
that's
dollars
why
as
they had
well.
ads. Damn.
I
Yes,
think
yeah.
I think the amount of users that use Twitch to stream all of it for free,
Hmm.
the resources and expenses it costs Twitch to operate, and over the past 10 years, the competition for advertisers, some who have scaled back significantly in this mini recession, is probably hurt as well, because
Hmm.
now you can stream multiple places. Like you could advertise multiple places. Is the target demographic changed where, you got hot tub streamers who's advertising, like I don't know, but certain ones, but like I think there's a lot to be said there. So, it
Beer.
sucks for the yeah, beer, exactly. It sucks because I don't think Twitch is going out of business tomorrow, but when you hear things like this, at what point, Amazon said, a massive company, but at one point did they say, let's cut our losses here, right? So obviously they've been given direction to get closer to profit and stop the significant cash burn. Otherwise, you don't lay these employees off.
No, but I mean, what, 500 employees? Now imagine they're also not cheap if you're
No.
working at Twitch. So that's possibly 100,000, if not more, a year for about all of them. So that is a significant savings, but also, what the hell were they doing that,
Mhm.
over 13 years that you couldn't figure
Oh,
out a
I'm
way to make
I'm
money?
sure it's millions
Mm.
upon millions of dollars in savings for sure.
Well,
Yep.
the killer thing again, and here's another large corporation purchases a smaller corporation, and now there's a bunch of people that are losing their jobs. And it's the adage time and time again. And this is not the first time that the mother company, Amazon, has done this. They did it with Comicology. They had a model that was working, and they gutted that company, and now it's basically just it was sucked into the void of Amazon. And I think the same way was going to happen with Twitch, but it's a shame that 500 people, I believe it was 30% of their workforce, is going to be gone now. That's a shame.
Yep. Yep. Well, again, we don't wish any ill harm to anybody. It sucks when you hear this, but hey, we're live streaming on non-Twitch platforms. So thanks for viewing it, subscribing, liking the channel. So we've talked each week about the future of Marvel. I think it comes up in some form or fashion. It's the hot topic, all the news. Jonathan Majors obviously recently, so Marvel's been really in the news. But there's a small glimmer of hope in the MCU. Deadpool and Wolverine are on the horizon. It looks like this could be a saving grace. But Echo, Marvel Studios, came out this last week on Netflix, and I think everyone's surprised. Rotten Tomatoes 72%. Now it's weird to celebrate a 72%. It's like you got to see on your assignment, but if you're being continuously failing, you actually pass this time. Is 72%? Is that par for the course now for Marvel? And then also, what do you all think? Is this? I mean, was it just okay? Were you actually blown away by it? I'd love to get everyone's thoughts here.
Well, I can tell you, I was Dr. Brentley. I was having this conversation. Like I said, we knew what they did. I heard that Kevin Feige during the whole writer strike thing sat down and he watched like the actual Echo episodes, and he deemed them, said, well, they're unwatchable. So he assigned people to go fix it, and they did fix it. Because I could tell that there was, between the 5 episodes that we had right now, there was another 5 that was chopped up and dropped into it, because it seemed like the series in certain ways in the past, in situations where I think they would have devoted to like an ancestor or something an entire episode. They actually devoted a couple of minutes to. So it looks like they took what was the best elements of the 10 episodes and made 5 episodes from it. It was the series as itself was I gave it a C grade myself when we were talking about it. I said, no, it's a C. It's watchable. There's moments that's entertaining. I think that there's a level of with the whole indigenous people scenario that's in it. Sometimes it could, there's certain things I think would have helped with better narration, so we got a appreciation of some of their, history, a little bit of some of their, events and things that they did. They just really didn't give us a good context, like the same way they did for like when they did the Black Panther and they did Wakanda and they did the festivals, and they kind of ushered us into what was this Wakandan's belief and how this was done. They didn't do that well with the Native Americans background, but they did do a good job of promoting the Native American life streams and things that were there. I thought Echo was a decent character. I think I would have liked to seen that done in maybe New York, and more of like the whole New York street level kind of thing, and that not taken all the way to Oklahoma, because I think that kind of like shifted the series a tad bit. But I thought that was good. I think there was a good fight scene in episode 1. Yeah, we're going to spoil that with another Marvel character. We won't give that out, but I think that was good. As usual, every time the Kingpin shows up, I think they have the best actor that they have ever gotten in any of the Marvel series, as well as I think Dr. Bentley said, as good as Thanos. Uh, he just took the entire series up another level. He's just a very imposing character, and he's one of the first characters that I've seen in the Marvel universe. They did a very good job of he's almost as close to accurate in the comic book as he is on screen. Like that personality, that whole brutality, the way that they shoot him, he looks larger than life. They do a great job with that. And I thought that here's somebody that he thought as his apprentice, and now he feels a tad bit now betrayed, but he understands some of it. Very good series, man. But it's a C. It's better than if you knock out the what we've seen last year with She-Hulk and other. This is watchable. This is entertaining. It does move a lot better than the other shows. I don't think 10 episodes would have worked for this. I think 10 episodes we would be talking about the same problems we had with Secret Invasion and all the other Marvel films. I think 5 was the niche, and they got in and they got out.
Yeah, the first episode I thought was actually kind of boring. And it takes about halfway through. They're just telling the backstory and the stuff that happened in the Hawkeye miniseries. So it's like half of the episode is just catching you up to speed, and then we get going. And the second episode I didn't really like, but the third episode I think was the best one. I really liked it, where they're in the roller skating rink and all the stuff that happens there. That was actually well done. They brought in her sister cousin character, who she was great, and their chemistry together was great, and they should have had more with her. They probably did, and they cut it out.
Yeah, it is.
And but then also, then there's episode 4, and then you get to the finale, and the finale is essentially the same set of circumstances that they had in episode 3. So they're not really doing anything that great, and so I understand why people give it a C or whatever.
But this was the one time it got what it deserved. Most of the time,
but yeah, it's not terrible.
Yeah, it's a middle of the road. But also, if you're not into, like, look, you don't have to watch the Hawkeye series to watch this. It would be nice because I do think after we've seen the last, you know, 3 to 5 years of the Marvel television that they've done, the new versions of it, I think Hawkeye was probably the best series that they've done so far because it moved extremely well. It had old characters, new characters, it just flowed. Well, this one, it's like, you didn't need to watch the Hawkeye series, but you should, in order to get the understanding of this character a little bit more. They did have an end credit scene that I thought they did well to set up what was going to go on with another Marvel series that's coming after this. And I thought, okay, well, at least they nailed that correctly. And they've got a little bit like, this is like, it's a game changer to what's about to happen. So I thought, it was, again, it's a middle of the road Marvel, but it's or Marvel TV show, but it's entertaining at the C minus aspect. You're not going to always get an A or B, but this was watchable compared to like Secret Invasion. I was like heartbroken by the time this. I said this has so much potential, and it didn't meet any of this. This one I was kind of looking forward to, and at the end I was like, it was an okay series. I wasn't upset about it.
This is a perfect example of what we had talked about a character that's pretty unknown to the main audience. That Marvel, similar to DC, the vertical line, you should do Marvel Max and do more of a violent adult themed series with unknown characters and give them to hot, maybe less known directors to go do. I think this was a perfect opportunity. It wasn't bad, but I think this is the type of like series that could have been better if you did it that way. Exactly. And I understand Disney Plus sometimes it's difficult because you don't want to go to like the more violent side, but I think maybe do it where it's like, hey, it's going to be PG-13, it's going to be R like related or whatever it's going to be, and you do these characters because I think you could have done it better if you just maybe made it a little bit more gritty. If it could have been that, right? And there were some pockets of it where it's like, exactly. Yeah. But like I think if you just made it like full steam, like it would have felt that way. Like, that's the whole thing. Like that's the vibe of Kingpin. Like anybody that's surrounded, like that should be it. And they're missing the boat a bit with that, right? So I think this is a perfect example of like they could have gone that route.
Also, it would have been so much cheaper if they had done it gritty. They could have gone on location in Oklahoma instead of making Georgia look like Oklahoma and, filming everything with all these great cameras and all these extras and all this stuff. It's like you could have done the same thing for probably a fifth of the budget of because it even though it was scaled down to a normal Marvel production, it was still very big production, and it looked like it was a big production where they could have just done it pretty much guerrilla style, and it would have, I think, helped the aspect that you're talking about, made it just feel like, oh yeah, this is different than the big superhero things.
Yep. Well, I think one thing that they did do though was I thought they spotlighted the Native American tradition extremely well. It was like it wasn't something where there's always times in Hollywood where they'll do something just to do it. I thought this was portrayed in the same way. They did a very good job, and like I said, the Black Panther and the Wakandans. So that was something that we hadn't seen. It was just, again, I just thought it was a little bit rushed in certain spots because I knew what they did. They chopped up a bunch of other episodes to throw things in. But this is where, like we were talking about, several casts ago, when Marvel made the decision to go back to traditional television storytelling. This would have benefited from a story Bible, would have benefited from more, directed scripts and staying a course. You need a plan. In television or films to stay the course, and Marvel have been let's fix it in post, and this was one of those let's fix it in post. I think this was the first time they fixed it in post and it worked comparably to like Secret Invasion. Let's fix it in post, and like what did they do to this? The story was non-existent. This did have a story. but it's a middle of the road piece. But again, I was glad to echo. I never read the comics that Dave Mack did with Echo, but now this makes me want to go back and actually examine that character a little bit more. So
Yep.
it accomplished that.
It was good. It wasn't like a Steven Seagal wearing the the Native American leather jacket,
Exactly.
pretending like somehow he's Native American in movies.
Mhm.
So 100%.
Mhm.
Well, that's good. It's good that there is a MCU TV series that actually was watchable, and that's a good start in the right direction. I thought I would never say that if you asked me 10 years ago, but here we are. So, moving on. Again, this is Shadow Crew Podcast, episode 22. Thanks for listening. Thanks for viewing. We are simul streaming on various platforms here. Follow us on all socials. Like, subscribe. The channel helps us grow. And we are about to start our best of series. So each episode on the podcast, we do a best of series. We've done things from best comic book characters of all time to best horror sci-fi movies to best crit. We've done it all. And today is the best of series, best adopted character from print to screen. So a character that was on the pages of comic books, graphic novels, actual books, and they translated pretty well to the big screen or small screen. We could probably spend multi hours on ones that didn't, but we've narrowed the focus on ones that did. So without further ado, gentlemen, let's get into it and talk about some of your favorites in this best of series format.
Well, I've got to say, our great editor that did the thumbnail for tonight's show, there was one thing that, again, we were talking earlier that I started laughing about. I totally kind of whiffed on the Gone with the Wind kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, it was adapted. It was probably one of the best print to screen characters from the novel to the book. So this subject made me think a little bit more out of the box than I normally would have. So it's not just going to be a bunch of comic books or action films. But I'm gonna start it off with, I think the best from print to screen character is Vito Corleone, Marlon Brando, the Godfather from the novel. So it's like that to me. When you say there's a character that embodies the book and embodies the actual screen, it's in the same way our editor did Gone with the Wind. It's the Godfather, Marlon Brando.
All right.
He made you an offer you couldn't refuse.
He did. He did.
I'm going to go straight up with the pulp fiction kind of stuff.
Okay.
Conan the Barbarian, Arnold
Oh,
Schwarzenegger. Jason Momoa tried, couldn't even get close. Arnold Schwarzenegger in that first movie especially is fantastic.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go with Thou Shall Not Pass, Mr. Gandalf himself, Lord of the Rings. Nailed it. And I'm going to cheat because I'm going to throw another Lord of the Ring character in there, and that is Aragorn, who also nailed the role. And what reading the books is exactly who I envisioned in that role. So those two characters specifically stood out in the Lord of the Rings franchise.
Don't leave Frodo hanging. Elijah Wood was amazing.
He did a great job, but those two were just a bit better on my list. But yes. Okay. I will say Orlando Bloom was that's the one that was
middle of the road kind of guy.
Yeah, I mean it was good, but I think they nailed Gandalf and Aragorn for sure.
Again, great subject for tonight. I'm thinking Kit Harington and Jon Snow, Game of Thrones. And again, this was one where I literally had to think about, and I was like, God, that was actually a great set of books. And it's just, it makes you think. You don't really realize how many from print to screen characters they've done, but there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah, two that we already talked about earlier in tonight. Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, even though he doesn't necessarily look like the character in the comics, but he is sort of become the embodiment, and now you can't think of Wolverine without thinking of Hugh Jackman. And then the other is Kingpin, Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yes. Wow.
I don't know what they do, but just the way that he wears those white suits looks like a frame out of a comic book, you know?
Yeah, and he's just a brilliant actor too. I mean,
Yeah,
that
he
helps.
is.
I'm gonna
The
say,
voice. It's
yeah,
the
yeah,
voice that he's got.
he's so good. He's so good. I'm gonna go to the Princess Bride and Fezzik and Inigo Montoya, two of my favorite on-screen characters of all time. Um, just such a cool movie, such a good translation. Andre the Giant and Mandy Patinkin, like those two, outstanding. Have to call them out. Anytime that movie's on, by the way, I'll keep it on.
Well, again, one of our good friends who's watching the show, I know he'll jump up and down and says, "Hey, you got to say Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man, Marvel Comics." Like whenever I think of Iron Man, I think of Robert Downey Jr. He's synonymous with the character and vice versa now. And I think even his look in the book looks more like Robert Downey Jr. than it ever did.
Yep. I agree.
Now, this one also from a comic book, but going back a little bit, J. Jonah Jameson, J.K. Simmons. That again, as silly as it looked, because he is a silly guy with the haircut and everything, but they actually made it look realistic and cartoony at the same time, and his performance was off the charts.
I'll give credit. One that I've just recently I thought was a better view was Alan Richardson or Ritson, Jack Reacher. Once I had saw his performance, and I knew why Lee Charles had a problem with Tom Cruise. It's night and day. The one embodiment really his character, and as great as an actress Tom Cruise is, he's a little height challenged. And like whenever you see Alan on screen, you're like, this role was meant for this guy. He's big, he's imposing, he's a much better actor than I think we gave him credit for when we saw him in like Titans as Hawk, or years ago he was on the Smallville screen. He was Aquaman in those, and he's look, the characters on print has been good to him. It's made a lot of things, but I really think that he's the living embodiment of Jack Reacher. And now I don't see Jack Reacher, the Tom Cruise. Like, no, he's solely wrong. Lee Charles is definitely right. This is the best version of him.
But you also believe he could fucking kick some ass too, like
big time,
a bit bigger than Tom Cruise. If
big time, man.
Yeah.
Well, you can just see by the commercials that they play the power that he has when he just walks up to the car and kicks the bumper.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with two comic book movies to screen. Actually, I'm gonna do three in a row of comic books. One, Homelander, The Boys, phenomenal. Two, Rorschach from Watchmen, the movie. I know that's controversial in terms of the movie, but I think that character was absolutely nailed for sure. And then three is Sandman, the guy that plays Sandman on the Netflix series. I think they did that extremely well.
And I was that's written right down here. I think the gentleman.
Oh, he nailed it.
Tom Sturridge.
Yeah.
He is 100% fantastic in that. And he almost looks like they've gotten somebody with the living embodiment of the artist that did it well. But yeah, that's probably one of the better series. If you're not watching Sandman on Netflix, and yes, that's a Netflix plug, go watch it.
He looks like they drew him and then he came to life off the page. Like they got like the features and all that. I will say the last thing I would say, rest in peace, Brandon Lee in The Crow was also really great. I think he nailed that character, like this like musician, like cool vibe, but like dark and like last film ever made, but I thought he did a phenomenal job. I actually think that movie is really good. It's underrated, but the original Crow movie, not all, they made like 9 and a TV series.
Of course.
Avoid at all costs. The first and only should be the one you watch.
One of the only movies I've ever turned off is The Crow 2.
Yeah.
It was so bad. Like, I was like, you know what? I can't even anymore. Let's return this. It was back when you had to actually return this. I was like, oh, I made a mistake on this one.
I remember back in the days, it was like the Blockbuster thing. The guy always be like, "Hey man, this movie's unwatchable, man. We'll give you credit." I remember
that. 300, King Leonidas. Gerard Butler looks like he's straight out of a Frank Miller drawing.
Made him a star. No one knew who the hell he was, and then oh shit. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll throw an old school one in here because I started thinking about this heavily. And I thought, and this some of our viewers, we might be a little bit, I got the shirt says I'm not old, but we are old. The Incredible Hulk, Bill Bixby. I don't care whatever you do from any other points. They've had great actors all through them. Every time I think of the Incredible Hulk, I think of Bill Bixby. I think of a Ford Pinto. I think on the side of the road that he gets angry. I'm sorry, it's just right there, And then you got to also say maybe Lou Ferrigno because he did it before CGI. So but I just think of Bill Bixby as Dr. David Banner. I just think of it all the time.
And if you're going back to 70s TV, Wonder Woman.
Oh yeah,
Linda Carter was. I think she's better than Gal Gadot.
I that's where I will disagree with you, sir. I think they got a good successor to her, but so far no one's done as good enough job as Bill Bixby's done.
Well, if we're going old school, if you're taking it back, let's not forget about Anthony Perkins, Norman Bates in Psycho. Talk about iconic and translation from the book and still in people's nightmares to this day. That one for sure stands out.
I'll give you Mr. Ron Perlman, Hellboy, Mike Mignola, the comic book. David Harbour, he tried, but he fell.
That's up there with Crow too, by the way. I'm gonna be honest.
He failed horribly, but when you think of Mike Mignola on print, and you think Ron Perlman on the screen. He's synonymous with the character, and I don't think at this moment anyone else is coming in and doing a better job than Ron Perlman did.
Now, this is one from a book. Johnny Depp, Hunter S. Thompson.
Oh yes, yeah.
Such a good movie.
Hilarious, and he actually hung out with Hunter S. Thompson. And they have the look down where he's got a bald cap on and he's out of his mind, even more so than Jack Sparrow, if you can believe it.
Yeah, I'll give that. Let's see who else we got. As I'm trying to run down because we did hit some good ones tonight. Admiral Thrawn, Lars Markinson. I thought. Here's extended universe character. Well, now I don't know what they're considering to be in Star Wars, but it was only from novels. And this character was, and I remember, I think they did some comics way back in the days as well. But, everyone was anticipating his in the Ahsoka series. What was Grand Admiral Thrawn going to look like? And when he pops up and you're like, wow, they've done a great job from print to screen, bringing one of the biggest Star Wars villains to life. So it was kind of cool to see that happen from something that was just extended books, man.
Yep. Christian Bale, American Psycho, 100%. And let's not forget about probably the greatest performance from book to TV or film. Heath Ledger as the Joker stands out to me as translating the epitome of the Joker in different facet.
But also it's that is not something that was taken from a book. That was straight up like a Chris Nolan
Oh yeah.
version of it.
But yeah,
But the
They never
character,
did it that messed up
yeah,
until after that movie, and then they started doing some really screwed up Jokers.
yeah, but the character was technically, from started off in print. I just
Yes,
think it's
but
probably
but
haunted
like
as
I'm
a
thinking
version.
like as an adaptation. Yeah, it's the same kind of thing as Hugh Jackman Wolverine, where it's not exactly
Exactly.
like the character, but yeah, it's probably the definitive version of it.
I'll say the character's been around for the longest. There's been many people that's done them. I thought the best person to do it was Mr. Cumberbatch, Sherlock Holmes, for the BBC series. Although Robert Downey Jr. did a good job, I just think that Cumberbatch brought him into a light that I think we haven't seen. It was very entertaining. So it's cool to see that character live on in different renditions, but I just thought that Cumberbatch did it the best.
See, I would say the old Basil Rathbone black and white movies. I love those, and it sort of was the way that people played it
Oh, yeah.
after him for probably 40, 50 years.
Well, see, that's why I think Cumberbatch did so well is that he's not playing another version of
No.
Razzle. He's doing his own version, and I think Robert Downey Jr. is kind of harkening back to some of the older versions. So that's why I thought it was the most original take on the character, and it was modernized too. So I think that absolutely helped it as well.
There's Hannibal Lecter.
Mhm.
A couple different people have played him now.
Mhm.
What was it? Ed Norton.
Mhm.
It was some guy in Manhunter.
Mhm.
Uh, but nobody is Anthony Hopkins.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's
Yep.
definitely made that.
Yep.
Jack Ryan, John Krasinski. Great series on Amazon if you haven't seen it. I think he over eclipses Harrison Ford because it's like he gave more
Even Alec
definition.
Baldwin.
You know what? They are almost. I know Alec Baldwin only got one film to do it, but it's as if you're kind of like the same version. I thought Alec Baldwin did the best job on screen on films, but Krasinski does a great job of taking that aspect of this guy is just an analyst and turn it into a series where it works. And it was the great 3 seasons to watch. Every moment moved well.
I think I look at that as like the older Jack Ryan versus like a younger Jack Ryan, right?
True. Hmm.
I think in my opinion, the best of that, like Patriot Games, is like my favorite of the Jack Ryan films. But Hunt for Red October is good. Clear and Present Danger, like that's another movie that's on. I'll just continue to watch it. They're all really good. But I kind of think of Harrison Ford like that's the older Jack Ryan. I don't know. It's kind of like
Yeah. Yeah.
if they ever did like an older Bond, almost, if you
Hmm.
will, like I would, but I don't think they'd ever get to a point where they have a 65 or no. But I'm just thinking, it's like
Hmm.
I don't know. That's just my 2 cents on that.
No, it absolutely makes sense. I think you start off with Krasinski as the youngest version of Jack, and then you run into Alec Baldwin, and then you do Harrison Ford, so you can see him through difference. I thought the first season of Jack Ryan was fantastic, although I also like The Hunt for Red October. But I think when you go to Patriot Games, those are action films and not like thrillers. And I think that Hunt for Red October and the Jack Ryan series are more thriller based, more towards what Tom Clancy was doing in the books, other than Tom Clancy action film.
I
Now, I'm
think
surprised you didn't say Blade, Wesley Snipes.
Yeah, you know what? That's yeah.
Because I am looking forward to see what Mahershala Ali will do.
Well, if we ever
But
see it,
yeah, that's true too. But man, those first two movies, but especially the first, he
first
just
one.
came out
Hmm.
strong as hell. And that's Wesley. That is the script. One of the few strong David what's his nuts? Uh
Gore.
yeah, David
Hmm.
Goyer and Stephen Norrington, the
Hmm.
director. Um Amazing.
Yeah, it is, man. That's what I'm saying. I'm waiting for that Ace at Ramen Toys, that Ramen Racer, so I can make sure that my Marvel Legends Blade figure has a car to go with it because that's look the whole lore. If you think about it, if they don't do a Charger in the Ali film, I'm gonna be disappointed. I see that in the same vein as like Ghost Rider without a motorcycle now. You got to have the Charger in the films, but chances are you'll probably be doing something different. Though.
Let's not forget Tim Curry's portrayal of Pennywise the Clown in the Stephen King rendition of It. I know there was the recent horror film, but I think like Tim Curry actually translated the books better, but obviously not as scary as the feature films that came out.
That actual scared me. That clown. The new
yes.
ones. Tim Curry didn't scare me.
If you could do Tim Curry and then added the horror element of the movies, that would have been like the greatest.
Yeah. Being on ABC probably didn't help
hard.
with the horror
of it. They did their best they could with censors, But
okay, it's between 9 and 11, but still, guys, we got to keep it tame.
Exactly. I'm surprised.
He's doing what to kids?
Chris, you didn't say, the guy who basically left the show because they would not do it perfectly, and the exact same way the books and everything. Henry Cavill, The Witcher, like I said, come on,
season 1, yes,
yeah, well, season one, yeah, which you got to give a season. My man was like, if you won't do this character right, I'm not going to be here anymore. That's a guy that loved the series. I can't wait to see what he does with like Warhammer because this guy really believes in the product that he's doing.
And he gets shit for that too. And he gets shit for that for saying that he likes playing the character. By the way, I just read in season 4 of The Witcher, that Lawrence Fishburne is cast as a character. I'm like, season 4, huh? You're still making that. Great. What about Harry Potter?
I know. I was thinking that too.
Harry Potter and Draco Malfoy, the kid that plays, like those are pretty good. And I think a lot of those characters were pretty accurate comparative to the movies, Hagrid, and so McGonagall, you could probably go down a list. Very similar Lord of the Rings. I think they cast really well.
One, as again, thanks to our editor, made me really think about, and I was like, who did the best adapted character from the book? And you got to say probably Marlon Brando, but then I was thinking, Miranda Priestley, Meryl Streep from The Devil Wears Prada. If there's not an actual villain that looks good at what they do, and I think if I'm not mistaken, didn't Meryl Streep win another Academy Award for that film? Or was that another one?
She might have.
God knows she has so many. She's just racking them up. But she portrayed that character extremely well, and the accuracy from the book is also just sometimes again, that's why I thought this subject was such a great one, because like how many characters are really started off in one form, and people only know them for the screen presence. So the one thing about us doing this topic tonight, hopefully it's going to make people go back and read some of the actual printed editions of this and start digging into it, because I know there's a couple I'll go back and start reading now.
Yeah. I think it wouldn't be a best of series, but it would be, because we talked about like worst adaptation. You could also do worst adaptation of a movie from a book. But I think an interesting topic would be not the greatest adaptation of a book, but still a great movie. Like I think about Jurassic Park. The book comparative to the movie really different, but the movie is great and the book is great. It would be interesting to see if there's a handful of those that exist, because usually if you don't follow the source material, it's usually a disaster. So just interesting topic for future episodes. Are we missing any? Do we have any more left of
I've kind of burned
Chris Reeves Superman?
Yeah.
I mean, he kind of embodied the look of it, and since then people have just made that, that's Superman, is that Chris Reeve look.
True. Yeah, no. I think I've hit all the punch notes on my card. So
I will say my favorite, Ebenezer Scrooge, Michael Caine in the Muppets Christmas Carol, but he's a serious Scrooge.
Yeah, yes.
He just got these Muppets acting fools around him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you did that on the retrospect series. I know you're pushing Michael Caine, boy.
I love Michael Caine. Professor X, Patrick Stewart.
Yes. Yeah, actually really good.
Mm-hmm.
Magneto too.
Yeah. But see, I would probably say Michael Fassbender, over Ian McKellen.
They both did it. That's
They
young
both
old
did
though
it.
again.
But
right?
I would
Like,
kind of say
yeah.
Michael Fassbender did, I think, a better rendition of the character. And that's kind of rare because I think Patrick Stewart did a way better version of Professor X than the other actor that was in the X-Men First Class. So, every now and then there's old school, new school kind of guys rolling it out.
What about Chris Evans, Captain America? Does he get some love here?
Well, on screen, he's the best version, comparably to the other gentleman. That did
To
it.
Matt Salinger with the rubber ears. Come on.
Yeah.
And, and while we're at it, that Red Skull was way better. It looked like he had some raw meat on his face. That was their makeup.
Yeah, like I said again, I could just see that. Well, trying to think who's the actor that does the Punisher, because look, he blew the socks off of anything Dolph Lundgren or anybody else did. So it comes to time that there's something that pops up like that. We're like, wow. Like, I can't believe they made that Captain America movie. I remember as a kid, we were excited to see it. And then we saw it was like, oh, and I waited 30 years to see Chris Evans do it.
No, I remember going to a comic book convention and they had the bootleg of it on VHS before it was released. And it was straight up, it said property of 21st Century Film Corporation, right? And I was so happy to watch it. And I put it in and I'm like, oh, no wonder they're not releasing this.
Well, now here's a posing question to the group. Who you think did it better? Samuel Jackson, Nick Fury, or David Hasselhoff? You got to take that in. Who did it better? Well, I think we know.
David only had the one chance. Who knows what would have happened if he got, second?
Yeah.
That's tough. Yeah. I mean, we could do a full, multiverse type of thing, and we cast really shitty actors in alternate versions.
This is got to be our March Madness. We have all the different brackets of characters. The Batmans versus the Supermans.
We should definitely do that. It's the March Madness of characters.
Spider-Man.
We already have Steven Seagal as John Thick or John Wick, right?
Yeah,
we were messing around, so that's one to start.
We most definitely need to do a bracket, and we'll put that up on the Instagram when it gets to March. We'll do a bracket of which worst characters.
The multiverse of madness. Oh, that would be really bad. I'm just thinking about who plays Doctor Strange in the different realm. The bad realm.
There was the 70s TV show, and then there was then he showed up I think in one of the Hulk movies.
He did, yeah. I think it was no, maybe that was the 70s TV show, maybe. I think maybe that was it. But and then I think Cumberbatch, obviously, but yeah, there's brackets, the multiverse bracket of madness that we should definitely do that for the month of March, man. That's you guys now have known the series, the best of series breakdowns. We're gonna do the multiverse bracket of madness for March. So get prepared for that. We're gonna throw that up on Instagram.
Well, hey, that was a great best of series. Again, this is Shadow Crew Podcast, episode 22, live streaming on multiple platforms. Before we depart, a couple of different updates before we get into our sponsor. We got more unbox episodes live on the channel. So check us out. New Shadows toy hunts for those of you toy collectibles. Where can you find the latest and greatest deals? It's post holidays. Does that mean more clearance, more fines? You never know, but Shadow knows. Also, big wrestling events happening for you wrestling fans. The Rock is back. Lots of big activities. So more to come on the channel. We've got the Tech Master. We've got Shadow updating the channel. And then, of course, more content as things come out. with between now and obviously the next couple months with new films, TV shows, and as always, 7 o'clock Friday nights, Pacific time here, multi-streaming the Shadow Crew podcast. So join us live. But before we depart, sponsors, Mr. Storm.
Well, first of all, my first sponsor tonight is Mr. Chad Maddox, willing and dealing, limousine riding, champagne drinking. He couldn't be with us tonight. So there's 4 members of the Shadow Crew podcast. Like I said, so he basically gave me this thing that Chad Maddox is the greatest. Stay sexy, wear your headbands, make sure that you're tuned into his stuff, because obviously he's the biggest free agent that the Shadow Knows Network has ever assembled. He's the only free agent we've ever done. So, we miss him tonight. But our second sponsor, one that actually pays us, is Toys versus Games in Wilmington, California. If you are the type of person who is you're tired of going through the Targets, the Walmarts, and you want like a good mom and pop store, somebody that's going to remember your name, somebody that you can go in and trade. I know Shadow's preferred store. He's in there all the time. If he gets a figure and he wants to upgrade it or trade it or something, he's got a shop that goes to. They're very friendly. They do community events. And it's just, these are the stores that we need to keep around, because as much as, the Toys R Us's, the Targets, the Walmarts, those are bigger conglomerates. And sometimes you can go in those stores and feel like no one's really kind of listening to you. But when you go to a mom and pop, you build a rapport with these people, and you're supporting shops in your community. So thank you for Toys versus Games, Wilmington, California. You can find them on Instagram, Toys versus Games on Instagram. And you'll find them every week here on the Shadow Crew podcast as our premium sponsor. So we thank them tonight.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Like, comment, subscribe, share it, share the channel. We do this because we like to, and we appreciate you all coming along on this journey as we wrap up episode 22. Any last thoughts, Mr. Storm and Dr. Brantley?
Yeah, no, as usual, like I said, great. We look at the algorithm. 90% of the people that watch the show aren't actually subscribing. So, hey, subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything. We definitely want you to subscribe to the channel, and so we can keep this going and keep this momentum building.
Please subscribe.
Hey, you got any of those subscribes on you? We'd love to have them. Have a great night. We'll see you next week. Adios.
The Shadow Crew Podcast.